Good evening, YouTube. This is Tire Metalhead Weatherman. Hopefully, you guys have had a good Saturday. I want to apologize for the late start to this video here. It may not be up till about midnight. Again, I do apologize because it's been a very busy day on my end. Errands and a lot of music going on my end of the deal. If you want to see what's going on with that, I should be dropping a video tomorrow on my second channel. Link to that will be in the top right corner. Anyways, a while back, right before we started tracking Ian when it was a tropical wave, I had dropped one of these climate forecasts, but it was a little bit out of date. And this climate forecast was for October. They just dropped a new one yesterday, and I figured I'd go over that real quick and then maybe take a little bit of a peek into the first half of October. There's some interesting stuff to show you there. So we'll go ahead without further ado and get right into it. We'll start out with the temperature outlook. So as I said, these are fresh off the press, literally, as of yesterday. And it's definitely different from what we were looking at on the last outlook. Before, almost all the country was entirely in this above average area, but now we have a little area over towards the North Atlantic and even into the Northeast that actually has a decent chance of being below average. We have the very light blue area being highlighted as our 33 to 40% range, and our 40% to 50% range, or our below average area, our darker blue below average area, is right around the DC and Baltimore area. Virginia, you guys are in this too. I wouldn't discount Richmond for being in it, as well as Philadelphia and a few other spots. But before, all of this was in above average temperature range. Beyond that, too much hasn't changed. For the most part, the central part of the U.S. is still going to be above average in regards to temperatures for October. Same can be said for around the far northwest and the northwestern plains, and maybe even towards the Sierras and parts of Idaho and Utah. But this part right here, around the northern part of the Four Corners region, has been the above average area has been shaded back a little bit slightly, or the probability has been dropped just a little bit. And that may have something to do with what I've been seeing on these forecast models. We'll be going into that in a little bit. Let's go ahead and look at the precip. And this part, we all know exactly what this has to do with. This definitely has Ian written all over it. But actually, if you really look at this closely over here, even for the central part of the U.S. here, compared to the last outlook here, the below average rainfall area has been shrunk a bit. It's been trimmed out a little bit more. Now have equal chances around a decent part of the southeast. Of course, the area where we have been looking at Ian, we're looking at above average rainfall possible. And I did mention this in the last video, but of course, with it being hurricane season, any of these small changes that aren't going to usually be accounted for in these outlooks can turn something like this into this, basically. So as I've said before, keep it in mind that this is not set in stone. This is not a guarantee that October is going to be dry and without rain, or that you're going to be 20 degrees above average every day. There are a lot of moving components that can change these forecasts within a drop of a dime. And here's something interesting as well right here. Before, we kind of saw this above average rainfall area more towards the northwest, towards Washington and Oregon. Now we have it over the Rockies. Really interesting. Well, again, I'll go into detail about that in a minute. But also, since we see it here, we might as well cover Alaska. Good portion of it above average chance of precipitation. No area really below average over there, which is also interesting. But yeah, that's kind of a sign that there could be some active times ahead when you usually see Alaska looking above average on precipitation. Alright, so that is the main entire month. Let's go ahead and look at the next few days, because that's going to be pretty important. That's more prevalent to a lot of you right now. So over towards the west, we're above average mostly. And then over towards the east, we're below average, especially over towards the northeast and towards the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley. We could be dealing with up to 80 to 90% chance of you being below average on temperatures. Pretty high confidence there. And the same can be said over towards the northwest, where we're looking at above average temperatures being possible. We're on the same side of the spectrum. We're about 80 to 90% confident in some areas being well above average, with the possibility of maybe even 10 to 15 degrees above average. So that's pretty much what we're looking at for the next week. We'll go over the temperatures, of course. But if we go to days 8 through 14, interestingly enough, that warm air has started to push back to the east. And one rule about the U.S., for the most part, if you see something like warm or cold air to the west, I can almost guarantee you at some point some of that is going to work its way eastward. It never fails. But cold blast is still in effect for a lot of the eastern half of the country. We're looking more towards the northeast now, and mid-Atlantic having below average temperatures. Pretty high confidence with it as well. Sitting at about 80, some places possibly even 90% above, or 90% chance of being below average. And even towards the south, even as far south as Florida, we could be expecting a little bit of a cool down ahead for these guys. So a lot of, like I said, a lot of moving components here, and we'll get into that in a minute. Let's go ahead and look at the 6 to 10 day rainfall chance. And interestingly enough, a few changes as well. Above average, of course, right where Ian hit. No surprises there. But this is a new area right here that's popped up. This wasn't here about 2 weeks ago when I did the last one. And of course, if anyone doesn't know, this is our monsoon region. Over towards the Four Corners, especially around Arizona and New Mexico, during this time of year in the fall, they tend to get a lot of rainfall. So this kind of adds up pretty well, in my opinion. But areas that are currently well below average as far as rainfall is expected. Actually, this is kind of almost taking a 90-degree turn, taking a 180, so to speak, not 90, a 180 from what we saw last time, whereas the far northwest usually is getting more rainfall, not this time. I do think this could be turned over on its head, as well as this region right here, especially over towards Wisconsin and the Great Lakes. Weather pattern is going to get active, so I do think there are some more chances for rain than what this is showing. So let's go to days 8 through 14. Not really much has changed, other than maybe I would say the Northwest getting out of that high confidence for a below average precip. And then more Florida gets more confidence in above average precip. Four Corners region still active. Four Corners monsoonal region still active, and then parts of Texas are increasing confidence as far as rainfall is concerned, which is good news for them because this area has been, parts of Texas have been hit really hard with drought. Let's hope that this stretches a little further east, because this area over here that's in the equal chance here, they've had it really rough with drought. So it'd be nice to see a little bit of rainfall, as long as it doesn't come down too fast. That's the main thing. Alright, so we'll go ahead and now go to the models here. We're going to start out by, we're just going to simply look at the precip type, because you can also kind of see these blue and red lines here. The blue lines are below freezing temperatures, and the red lines are, of course, above freezing. But just watch those lines as I'm going through this here, because that will tell you a lot about what's going on right now. Keep in mind, this is also the 12Z Euro, so This is a little bit behind, but this is the furthest out I can get with it. 240 hours. I'm pretty sure it'd be a waste of time to show you guys a 90-hour model in a long-range forecast. So here we are right now. This is the remnants of Ian here, still meandering around the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. It's going to be hanging around on Sunday. Should be out of here by Monday. And then look what we have right here is a little piece of energy. Kind of has the look Sunday night where maybe some pulse severe storms are possible there, maybe a little tiny line segment. But then also I want you to look at this area that's indicated as high pressure, but it is a lower pressure piece of energy. If you look real closely, you can start to see these little purples and occasionally even a little blue in there every once in a while, right? That's a wintry mix of precipitation, and the blue is actually snow. So up towards the Rockies, we may be looking at some of our first snowfalls of the year. I mentioned that in this weekend forecast, in the weekend forecast video as well, but we're going to go a little bit more in depth with that here. All right, so here's Ian again hanging off the mid-Atlantic coast here, but should be moving out to sea shortly. But you can see these little small pieces of energy that are kind of hanging around Mexico. It's going to be triggering our rainfall around that monsoonal region. It's going to wake that region up, and it's just going to rain and rain and rain all over that region over the next few days and really into the next couple of weeks. Just off chances for thunderstorms on and off there. What I really want you to pay attention to is this little piece of energy right here and what's going on behind it. Remember what I told you about those blue lines. Watch the big push that they make. It's a big push to the far, far south. And this even makes a relatively close pass, according to the Euro, to maybe the Great Lakes region, maybe even New York, where some flurries might even be possible there, which is really interesting. And then it looks like there's almost the Euro kind of goes with a few Clipper style-esque systems coming in behind it. And then here's another Arctic blast coming closer to the middle of the month. This is towards the end of our model run too, though, so I have to take that with a grain of salt. But it looks like there's a lot of cold blasts coming. Last off, we'll go ahead and take a look at what the GFS has to offer here. And for the most part, what I saw here was the same thing. I'm just kind of holding my breath here because GFS on Pivotal kind of freezes up on me the most, more than any other model. So again, here we are with Ian. Here's our piece of energy towards the northern plains here. Then, of course, we have our little piece of energy around the Rockies, but it's not really it's not really as gun-ho on the snow potential as the Euro is. And this is the 18Z GFS, by the way. So I'd have to take a look at the OOZ and see if that correlates with what we're seeing here with this GFS run. Of course, by then there will be another GFS run. It can be a headache sometimes doing this stuff. So here's our first Arctic plunge, our first cold plunge, and if you look closely, you're up towards the UP. Some flurries are possible there, by the way. This is towards the middle of next week, or the middle of this week, really, if you want to call it that, I suppose. And then, of course, this makes a close pass with the northeast here, and then here's that little Clipper-esque, deck on it. Lost my place there. Okay. It's as close as we'll probably get. If you look real close though, right behind this Arctic blast here, you can almost see this little Alberta Clipper-esque type system coming in. Brings a little bit more flurries, maybe even some snowfall, maybe even measurable snow up towards the UP and even towards the Great Lakes region. And this does try to make a push into the northeast as well towards the end of this upcoming week. And then after that, these cold temperatures look like they're trying to linger for a little bit. Some low temperatures in particular around the south and east even could get pretty below average pretty cold. Some pretty cold mornings are ahead for places like where I live in Atlanta, so to speak. So towards the middle of the month, I'm going to be watching that extra close. But overall, the picture is relatively quiet until right where that Euro model tends to end. Look at this monster right here. Look at this piece of energy that pops up here. Uh-oh. And GFS is frozen. See if it'll come back. Ah, jeez. Okay, here we go. Now it's coming back. GFS froze on me, and it's still trying to freeze on me. Should have learned my lesson by now early because of what happened earlier in the year. Okay, I think we're back now. There we go. But you can see that storm system that I was talking about over here, it comes in, and now we have a pretty sizable looking piece of energy from the looks of it right here. Decent low pressure here, and then it looks like there's another piece of energy here that could make for an interesting setup towards the middle of the month. Of course, this is pretty far into our model run here, so we got to take that with a grain of salt. But one thing that I do see consistent with both the GFS and the Euro here is the fact that we are seeing multiple cold shots coming in within the first half of the month, multiple pieces of energy. So like I said, there's a lot of moving components, and as a result, it could lead to a very interesting start of the month, especially towards the northern states, the Northeast in particular, maybe even the Northwest as well, especially towards the middle of the month here. GFS is still trying to freeze on me. Maybe if I close this out, it'll help. We have too many tabs up. Okay, there we go. Looks like that's helping it move along a little bit. Nope, but it does look like we get another piece of energy here towards the 16th, right around the middle of the month again. And we'll have to see where that goes, but towards the end of the month, we're towards the end of the model run, so to speak. And as a result of that, can't really trust it, but this is a pretty bold look right here. And this would even mean snow towards some of the valleys here. It's not far-fetched considering the cold shots that we're seeing, but this area is also considered to be above average right now according to the outlook. So, like I said, a lot of moving components. It's going to be hard to get a read on some of these forecasts in the coming weeks, but that's the game. That's the weather game for you. But that's towards the end of the model run, and that's really the end of the video. That's all I got for you guys. I'll have more stuff for you guys tomorrow. I'm trying to figure out what we do next. Maybe a tropical outlook, since we haven't looked at anything else other than Ian for a while. But still going to keep the content rolling. Maybe we'll hone in a little bit closer to this week's forecast. Maybe not, I don't know. It depends on if there's anything significant that I end up finding throughout the day. But if you guys like what I've been doing, liking the consistency, or just liking how I do the videos, just let me know in the comments. Leave me a like, or tell your friends to sub to the channel. Goal is to try to get to 100 subs by the end of the year. I think it's possible. We'll see what happens. But if you're also into heavy metal or anything and you're wanting to check out some music, I have a second YouTube channel. I mentioned that earlier in the video. But if you made it to the end of the video, I appreciate you. And I will see you again soon. This has been Tired Metalhead Weatherman. You guys have a good night.